Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me one quick favor, see that little black subscribe button on the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Really does help this channel grow, my audience grow, and I appreciate it more than you know. Also, quick thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet $50 on any game. Get up to $1,111 in free bets courtesy of the Betfred Sportsbook. Thank you again. Now, here's the video that you came here for. And I do want to talk about another topic that we cannot get enough of here on the Aaron Torres pod. I know I just said that conference realignment and expansion is the topic that just won't die and that just won't stop getting talked about. The other one that we won't stop talking about is Coach Prime, Deion Sanders, and the Colorado Buffaloes. And the reason why is Coach Prime is a freaking content machine. He's always doing stuff to put himself in the news. Other people are always talking about him. And certainly the way that he is approaching building a roster in college football in 2023 is really sort of unlike anything that we've ever seen. I think everybody knows by now, but just the roster turnover is incredible. I can't even keep up with everything, but the thought is going to be that there will be about, I think, like 10 to 12, maybe 15 players on this coming roster that were part of last year's Colorado team. So essentially they're going to flip over like 90% of the roster before opening week against TCU here in about 6 weeks from now. At the same time, we've obviously talked a lot about Coach Prime on this show, but the one group of people that seems to enjoy or are intrigued by Coach Prime, maybe even more so than guys and girls in the media, is other coaches, because they cannot stop talking about him and they cannot stop sharing their opinions when they're asked about him. Pat Narduzzi, the Pitt head coach, had some comments a few months ago. There's been anonymous coaches speaking out in different platforms and places. And oh, by the way, we got the latest when Oklahoma coach Brent Venables was asked about Coach Prime and how he is building his roster at Big 12 Media Days just a few days ago. Here is what Brent Venables said about what Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, is doing. He said, quote, "I gave my guys 12 months of grace. I was unlike Deion. I gave guys 12 months of grace to figure it out. Here's 3. Go to class, live right off the field, and when you show up here, you show up with respect and appreciation with your opportunity. And if you go 0 for 3 for 12 months, you need a fresh start." So we help 21 guys, give or take, find a fresh start. So those were some comments Brent Venables made last week, and they really weirdly didn't start to circulate up until the last probably day or so. But you know who they got to? They got to Coach Prime, because on Tuesday afternoon, he responded on social media, and boy, oh boy, love Coach Prime, not afraid to clap back at the haters. He said on Twitter, please read this slowly, "I've never responded to any of these great coaches that choose to target me or our program here at CU Buffaloes football. I'm great at walking and talking the talk. And if it were truly me, I would have referenced a Lamborghini. That's hashtag Coach Prime." Not going to lie. 1, I love that Coach Prime is not willing to clap back. 2, I'm also just going to call a spade a spade. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm too unhip. I have no idea what the Lamborghini reference is. Whatever. But the point I'm trying to make, I love that Coach Prime isn't afraid to clap back, because I think he is 100% right. And I'll just say this. I am so over all these coaches going after him. And I think Venables especially Venables especially, and I know he was asked a question, but Venables, dude, you're at Oklahoma coming off a 6-win season. I think you got bigger issues than with Coach Prime. And it's funny, right? Because when I look at the whole situation, that's what cracks me up about the Venables comments. A few things stand out. First of all, the whole like I am holier than thou. I give guys 12 months. I'm the greatest human being in the world. Dude, give me a break. First of all, you just acknowledged that you cut kids, that you get rid of kids, that when kids aren't doing what is expected of them, you get rid of them. To be clear, I have no problem with that. I've said all along, I have no problem with what Coach Prime is doing. But the idea that you're somehow a more noble man because you give them 12 months, give me a freaking break. Coach Prime gave most of those guys 5-6 months, right? He showed up in December. He said, we're bringing our luggage. It's Louis. But there were a significant number of those guys who went through spring camp, spring practice, and had an opportunity to earn their spot. And so you look at, what was it? About a dozen, probably 3 dozen players entered the portal after spring ball. So Coach Prime came in, gave them a shot, gave them an opportunity. What's the difference between 6 months and a year? Oh, you gave them a little bit extra time during the season? Okay. It's not as though most of those players didn't have the opportunity to compete with Coach Prime. The other thing that I find interesting about this, like Venables, it's easy for you to say, oh, I give guys 12 months. Well, a couple of things. You also took over a 10-win team. You took over a team that was playing in the final week of the regular season to play for a Big 12 title. That is the program that you took over at Oklahoma, okay? So spare me the, I'm such an amazing person. You also took over a much better situation. And oh, by the way, if you still cut 21 guys essentially, and that's what you did, you cut them. If you still cut 21 guys after a year, maybe you should have cut them sooner. By the way, let me backtrack. If you cut 21 guys after a year off of a 10-win team, that's saying a quarter of the guys on a 10-win team were not falling in line. So now imagine taking over a 1-11 team. You don't think that number is going to be higher? You don't think the patience has to be thinner? You don't think there's more guys trying to cut corners, not good enough, whatever the problems were at Oklahoma, they're not the problems, it's Colorado? Give me a break. By the way, you cut 21 guys this offseason. Here's the other thing. You give them a full year, 12 months. You gave them grace, Coach Venables. Congratulations. Guess what? Guess what, Venables? Here's my question for you. You went 6 and 7 last year. Maybe you gave people too long of a leash. Maybe you should have cut them sooner. Maybe you knew they were bad apples sooner. So I can't get over all these guys that are, they just try to make themselves out to be so much better and so much more noble. They're all fighting the same fight. And I get it. I get that coaches, and I do think, let me even backtrack. I do think that most coaches in their heart of hearts, they see themselves as teachers, as communicators, as people that are developing young people. And I do believe that most guys and most coaches want to do what's best for each individual player. And I don't think they want to get rid of guys. I don't think they want to throw them out of the program. But as I said all along with Deion Sanders, with Coach Prime, if a kid's not good enough, if a kid isn't following the rules, listen, that's the best real life lesson that you can get. If you don't get the job done, you can't stay here forever. And especially in the NIL world where you're now earning money. You now have a chance to take care of your family, but you gotta live up to it. It can't be give to the players and the players take without giving anything in return. It's also worth noting that with the portal, guys can leave and go somewhere else right away, right? Like if this was 4, 5, 6 years ago and you had to sit out, I think a lot of people would be upset with what Coach Prime is doing, or upset with what Lincoln Riley's done, or upset with what Kenny Dillingham has done at Arizona State. But it's a different world. It's a different reality. And I'll take it even a step further. While Coach Prime has taken it to the biggest example, to the biggest extreme, it's not as though others aren't doing pretty much what Coach Prime is doing as well. Looked it up. Arizona State, I just said it, Kenny Dillingham, new head coach. At last check, 34 guys out of the transfer portal. So we're talking about essentially half of the roster is coming in new out of the portal. Doesn't include high school players, just portal guys. 34 at Arizona State. Lincoln Riley took 30 plus last year. The difference is they just weren't as vocal about it. They weren't on social media talking about it. They weren't chirping about it. They weren't on Pat McAfee about it. And by the way, good for Coach Prime. Be you, do what works for you, do what's best for you. Finally, I love the response, but the not real response from Coach Prime, right? He kind of says, I've never responded to these coaches and I'm not going to start now. We're doing our things at Colorado. That kind of says, yeah, I see what you're saying. Let's see who ends up working out right in the end. Let's see who ends up being right in the end. So it's fascinating to watch. It's fascinating to think about. I'm so over all these guys though. Oh my, I would never do it like this. It's like, well, the sport is changing. It's the NIL world, and especially Venables, especially Brent Venables, oh, I give them 12 months grace. Maybe you should have cut a few of them sooner. You would have gone 6 and 7 last year. And oh, by the way, Brent Venables, you better win a lot this year. I'm not saying your job is on the line, but what I am saying is you're going to have a lot of doubters if you don't turn this thing around very quickly.